Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Live Chat with James, coming to you from the studios here at ProPix TV in Vancouver, British Columbia. Tonight, we're going to take a look at some of the headlines that are reaching out from Metro Vancouver, across Canada, and around the globe. Of course, we are looking at so many different topics, such as the bird flu. The avian influenza is still making headlines. It is still impacting the price of eggs, and it is still impacting the world food supply. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also take a look at the latest attacks on Ukraine, including over 85 drones that were launched overnight and struck certain areas, with only 40 of them being intercepted, 9 others that were either lost from radar or were impacted by jammers. So we'll talk about that as well. The US also is condemning Canada and several other countries for their sanctions against several politicians in Israel for crimes against humanity. We'll talk about that. Also, we are looking at the ArriveCan scandal. Again, $100 million spent by the Canadian government. And where did it all go? We'll talk about that. The RFK has also made a big announcement that he has fired 17 of the Vaccine Advisory Council members during his vetting process and his meetings before Congress, said that he would not do anything with the 17-member panel, but he has dismissed them all. That is a big concern for various reasons, and we'll explore that in further detail. Also, the RCMP has announced that they are investigating potential war crimes against Israel with the attacks in Israel, by Israel on Palestinians on the West Bank and other regions. But again, it is a neutral, impartial investigation, so they are investigating potential war crimes from both sides. So let's get started, folks. Thank you for joining. I see a lot of activity in our little box here that tells me people are logging in. So welcome, everyone. Scott McKee, Donna Hunter Pino, welcome. Abhorrently Thick, welcome. Becca, Rupin, DJO, welcome everyone. Calvin, CA, welcome. Sorry, that is not in English, so I don't know how to pronounce it or read it, but welcome all the same. And Renee Downey, welcome everybody. Me, that's all. Welcome. Nice Canada flag flying there proudly. Excellent. All right, let's get started. Here in Metro Vancouver right now, there is a wildfire advisory just up the Sea to Sky Highway in Squamish. The alert and advisory is in place right now. There is no mandatory evacuation order for the Brackendale community, as there is an out-of-control wildfire threatening that part of the Squamish community. Brackendale is a beautiful setting, as is Squamish, for any fans of the Netflix series Virgin River, that is again filmed out in that region. So it gives you an idea about the beautiful landscape there, the ocean, just everything with the wild rivers and so forth. So again, it gives you an idea as to how picturesque and beautiful it is, but also how dense the forest is in that region. And of course, that is a big concern. Now, the 5-hectare fire is burning up in the mountain there, and it is still considered out of control. As I stated at the top there are still evacuation alerts in place and advisories, but no order. People are also advised that if you are driving along the Sea to Sky Highway towards Whistler, or coming back from Whistler, or any parts in between or beyond, that you not pull over on the side of the highway to take pictures and to watch the fires. Please pull off the highway somewhere safe onto one of the side roads where it is safe to do so, and not interfering in any way, shape, or form with the emergency personnel. Also, pay attention to road closures and restricted zones. With that said, of course, you get some idiots who want to fly their drones out in the wildfire area, trying to get some great images and videos for their social media clicks. But remember, it is against federal law to be flying drones in the vicinity of natural disasters and emergency areas. So again, you could be fined or arrested if caught doing so. And yeah, so again, just use some common sense. Remember that flying drones over the wildfire zones can result in many challenges, not only a threat to the safety of the firefighters and first responders, but also to aircraft who have to be grounded when they pick up any type of drone activity. They have to ground the flights, again, delaying the response and the firefighting approaches and attempts. So again, keep your damn drones out of the sky. Keep them out of and away from all fire zones and emergency areas. Again, you're looking at people's homes, their businesses, their livelihood, but most of all, their lives. You can be putting them at risk. So please don't do it. Again, the smoke, of course, from the Canadian wildfires that are burning from coast to coast is a major concern for anybody with respiratory disease or other illnesses that impact the respiratory system. And remember, try to limit your time outside during the wildfires, or if you have a lot of smoke in the air. You also want to keep in mind that even though it may be a wildfire, and if it is hitting structures such as homes, businesses, and the like, there could be airborne particulates and carcinogens in the air. So you want to make sure that if you are in a region where there is thick fire smoke, you want to wear some type of mask to help to keep those particulates from entering into your airway. Whether you are asthmatic, have CPOD, excuse me. Apologies, folks. Or if you have COPD or anything else, you want to just keep that in mind. But even you want to also remember that if you're pregnant, if you are, any type of other illness, you want to be aware of the risks in the area, especially if structures start to burn. With that said, we'll move on to other stories. In Ontario, one of the largest drug arrests has happened. Hundreds of millions of dollars of cocaine was seized. I believe it was in around the 47.5 kilogram range, plus cash and other things that were confiscated. And there have been a group of individuals who have been arrested and will be facing the courts on those charges. The bright side, that's over 40 kilos of drugs that have been taken off the streets and potentially harmful to our communities. So kudos to the police departments that were involved in that case and who made such great progress there. Now let's move on to the probe, by the RCMP. The RCMP have recently announced that they are a part of the international investigations for war crimes and human rights abuses by Israel when it comes to attacks on Hamas, in terms of the strikes that may have hit residential areas and hitting innocent civilians. That is a big investigation. Unlike the investigations in Ukraine, this one here has been a lot more clandestine. The actual investigation started in early 2024, but it's only recently come to light that it is happening. So therefore, it is a lot different than the Ukraine investigation, where there was a lot of public call for information, for evidence, and for witness statements and so forth. Here in the Israeli issue, they are there as a non-partial, neutral party to investigate crimes, and that is on both sides of the fence, so to speak. They are there to investigate crimes that may have been perpetrated by either side of the conflict in the Israel, Gaza, and Palestinian conflict. So again, very big news. With that said, the United States, and in particular Marco Rubio, is denouncing Canada and their partners in the UK, Norway, Australia, and New Zealand for sanctioning several Israeli ministers for inciting violence, extremist violence, as well as going after the human rights abuses and such for people in the West Bank. With that said, of course, the U.S. is calling out Canada and its partners, stating that this could be impeding their ability to bring peace to the region. And also they claim, excuse me, as stupid as this sounds, they are claiming, or they stated, and this is Marco Rubio from the White House, stated, let's not forget who the real enemy is. And that is because of the sanctions that have been placed against several individuals in the political sphere of Israel. And that is the head of the National Security Force, or Minister of National Security, sorry, and the Minister of Finance. The names are Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. Those are the names of the individuals who have been sanctioned. Once again, Marco Rubio saying, let's not forget who the real enemy is. Well, the real enemy is anybody who is participating in war crimes. The real enemy is anybody who is encouraging violent, extreme actions against others. The enemy are people who are taking the lives of innocent civilians, women, and children. The enemy are people who are striking hospitals and non-military targets. The enemy are people who need to be held accountable for their atrocities. And at the end of the day, that seems to be lost on the United States. Now, we're seeing a very different approach to world peace, to diplomatic settlements of different wars and different conflicts around the world, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in Israel. It seems that the United States has decided to turn a blind eye to a lot of atrocities going on. They are willing to forgive and forget a lot of things if it is in the best interest of the United States to do so, overlooking human rights abuses, overlooking genocides, overlooking a lot of criminality on the international stage. And that's where the Trump administration needs to get their head out of their ass and realize that, yes, you can work with Israel and Palestine and everybody else. At the same time, you're supposed to be working with them in the direction of bringing peace, not taking sides to say, well, we need to protect our interests here, even if the people we are dealing with are in the wrong. Now, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu says that he will be looking at sanctions in response to those alleged or levied against his ministers. He's also stating that it is not appropriate for there to be sanctions against sitting politicians and ministers there in Israel. But again, it is time that the international community drew back their balls and started putting these countries on notice that enough is enough. The international crime, the international war laws and such need to be respected. If there is not going to be any accountability by the United States government, then the rest of the world has to step in and make sure that there is accountability, even if it goes against the interests of the United States. Now, just because the United States claims that they are trying to negotiate peace doesn't mean that it really is happening. We've already seen where there is such a flip-flop on U.S. foreign policy that nobody really has faith in the United States right now as a credible partner, as a credible country to lead any type of peace negotiations when it comes to the Israel-Hamas battle, whether it comes to Ukraine and Russia. It seems that the U.S. is just siding wherever they want, depending on the day of the week and which way the wind is blowing. So again, the confidence in the U.S. to actually negotiate peace agreements has been lost, as well as the confidence of the U.S. as a reliable partner. That is coming from a lot of the international leadership. It will be interesting, however, next week as the the G7 summit takes place in Kananaskis, Alberta, which is in the heart of the Rocky Mountains in Canada. Now, Donald Trump is anticipated to be flying in and out of Kananaskis each day. And yeah, there is a small movement to actually have the G7 leaders, in particular Mark Carney, de-invite or disinvite Donald Trump from the G7 summit, given the current situation in the United States, particularly Los Angeles, where he is launching essentially an attack against his own people by dispatching the military on domestic soil to deal with domestic law enforcement. Just unacceptable behavior by Donald Trump. Especially when he goes on to threaten violence against his own citizens. That's totally disproportionate to anything that he's threatening the violence against. So again, it is a sad day for the U.S. Constitution as the U.S. just throws itself further and further into a constitutional crisis. And it appears that the only time the Constitution matters is when it's in Trump's benefit. Other than that, the Constitution is just a pesky little piece of paper that keeps Trump looking at it going, who cares? Who cares? Doesn't matter. We'll do it anyway. It's illegal? Only if a judge, holds us to account for it. And even then, he's just going to attack the judges anyway for being Democrats and launching, a legal war and weaponizing the criminal justice system. But at the end of the day, it's up to the rest of the world to stand up, grow some balls, and say, no, we're not going to let Trump support these dictators and let people get away with crimes of war. And, of course, crimes against humanity. It's just not acceptable. And for the U.S. to try to chastise other nations for holding people accountable for inciting extremist violence is just ridiculous. Now, as I say that, it's really not surprising, but it is ridiculous. And that is, that is a scary thought. The other controversy, of course, with the G7 is the invitation to India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. As Canada and India have seen a real freeze in the geopolitical relationship and our diplomacy, it has been a very tumultuous time. Now, of course, Canadians are concerned about the transnational repression with the Modi government potentially involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Later next week, about 8 days away, we'll be looking back at the second anniversary of his assassination at the Gurdwara in Surrey, British Columbia. Now, it's not only the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar that is of concern to Canadians, it's also the fact that India has been linked to foreign interference when it comes to our political system, certain politicians, and just everyday life in Canada, as well as intimidation of Canadian citizens, such as those in the Sikh diaspora who are campaigning for a sovereign Khalistan state in what is now a Punjab state of India. Now, this has been moving along very slowly. The tensions have been very high between Canada and India since this happened. And of course, we know that different diplomats were expelled from each nation. So with this, of course, people are angered and frustrated as to why Mark Carney would extend the invitation to Prime Minister Narendra Modi to come to Canada for the G7 summit. I like to be an optimist. I'm hoping that it is an opportunity for Mark Carney and Narendra Modi to kind of soften the stance a bit, to have face-to-face time to start resolving the issues, but also to try and hold to account anybody who was responsible for the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, whether that involves the 4 people who are standing trial right now, in addition to anybody else who may have had a hand in the hired assassination behind the scenes. And again, that reaches all the way to India. Now, there is a lot of conflicting information coming out in the media. And again, India's propaganda machine and their media presence is not unnoticed. They are stating that they're basically to their people, to their citizens, that Canada reaching out to extend that invitation is a sign that the world cannot do without India in terms of the global marketplace, the global economy, and the global workforce and supply chains. And so, of course, they're spinning it to meet the narrative of pumping up the ego of Narendra Modi. They also claim that there will be talks by Modi while he is here to look at the extradition of certain people that he and his government have labeled terrorists, to have them extradited from Canada back to India to face the criminal justice system there. The problem, though, is that we have very different interpretations of what is considered terrorism. In India, for example, if you speak out against the government, you speak out against those in high power, you can be labeled a terrorist. If you campaign for a referendum for a free and sovereign Khalistan, instead of having that freedom to protest, to lobby, to hold a referendum, instead you're labeled a terrorist and can be disappeared or detained in a jail cell with no charges and for an indefinite period of time. So that is why there's such a different wide interpretation, and why Canada doesn't always listen or respect the requests for extradition, because there has to be clear and present evidence that the person is involved in actual terroristic activities. And unfortunately, in many cases, because of the way that it is set up, that Canada doesn't recognize that if someone speaks out and practices a freedom of speech, that is not necessarily terrorism, and Canada recognizes that, whereas India is not able to present real tangible evidence of other activity. So again, that is kind of where things stay or are at this point. So we'll wait and see if any negotiations for exchange of people for extradition happens. But again, I don't expect that it will. As I said earlier, I hope that Mark Carney does make time, though, to address human rights issues, minority rights issues, and of course, transnational repression and other important factors that are playing a role in this freezing of our communications and diplomatic ties. But again, there's also the economy. There is global security, especially in the Indo region, in the Asian Indo region there, and other areas. So again, it is political dominoes where, you know, one thing tips and the whole house can come down. Very important for that to hopefully move in the right direction to start thawing some of the coldness there. Speaking of international incidents and current crisis that is happening overseas, 17 drones have struck residential areas in Kharkiv overnight, with others that struck let me restart that. Is that 90 drones were dropped and hit in the various regions of Kharkiv and other outer areas of Ukraine. Now, in total, 85 Shahed-type drones were launched by Russia overnight. They hit playgrounds, they hit residential apartment blocks and apartment buildings, they hit private homes, as well as industrial areas and other points of that shouldn't be targeted. Just plain and simple. Russia doesn't care what they strike. At this point, so far, reports have it that 2 people have lost their lives and 60 others were injured in these drone attacks. 40 of the drones were dropped, and several others, up to 9 of them, were either lost off radar or impacted by jamming technology. But again, the numbers are quite substantial, the damage is substantial, and the fact that they are once again hitting residential facilities and homes within the Ukraine borders is really, a real scary thing. Once again, when we look at Donald Trump's big, mean, and scary threats to oh, wait, no, he doesn't have any threats against Russia. He just keeps saying, oh, we'll wait for 2 weeks. Oh, we'll wait for 2 weeks. Every time you ask him, it's always 2 weeks out before he takes any action against Vladimir Putin and those that are waging an illegal war against Ukraine and that are responsible for so many deaths that are just war crimes, atrocities, executions. No matter how you put it, Donald Trump seems to be in the back pocket of Vladimir Putin, and he is not really interested in putting any type of sanction increases or any type of pressure on Vladimir Putin to end the war. Every time Donald Trump says that he's making progress, it seems that Russia just ups the ante even more and carries out even more barbaric attacks on innocent civilians, on residential communities, and it is just appearing that Donald Trump doesn't really give a shit about the people in Ukraine or anybody outside of his circle who can benefit him and the Trump organization. And that is my opinion on it. I think that Donald Trump is the most corrupt president that has ever sat in the Oval Office. And I don't think that there will ever be anybody who can compare to him in terms of his corruption and his criminality and his sheer ignorance and lack of brain cells that are functioning. I just don't believe that. I think that, there's got to be an international coalition to start taking control of the situation. It's time for Donald Trump to step back from trying to negotiate his bullshit peace treaties in which he is just trying to appease his friends like Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin. They cannot get away with these war crimes, and as I said earlier, they need to be held accountable for those. But we need these wars and these conflicts to be ended, not on Trump's terms, because he is just going to extort absolutely anything and everything that he can out of either side that benefits Donald Trump and his friends and his organization. So again, corruption at its worst. Other than that, folks, I think that we need to revisit the bird flu situation that is happening throughout the U.S. and around the world. So far, 2024 resulted in losses of up to $5 billion around the world and possibly greater as the bird flu, the H5N1, has actually spread from birds to cattle and other mammals. Approximately 300 other types of mammals have been impacted by the H5N1, and it includes human transfer. As we continued into 2025, we still see a major impact by the global avian influenza pandemic, and that includes the culling of millions and millions of chickens and other poultry. That, of course, has a direct impact on the egg prices and the egg supply as the birds are ill, or if you have to cull a mass number of birds, then of course that's going to have an impact on the supply of eggs and other poultry products. Now, as the supply is impacted, of course, the price goes up for the demand. Keep in mind that also added into that is the cost of detection, of biosecurity technology, of, vaccines and everything else. So there's a lot more to it than just the fact that there is a shortage. There's a lot more costs that come into it. Now, in all disclosure, PPCM AI Technologies, that is a part of our company, is ProPix Media and AI Solutions. And we are working on research and development of a potential screening that could give much more advanced notice of potential outbreaks in the poultry farms, as well as being able to adapt that technology to pick up on other diseases within the food supply or illnesses that could impact the food supply, having it adapted for everything from the swine flu to foot and mouth disease and so forth. So again, technology, but again, at this point, we are looking to move to the second phase of that research and development. With that said, of course, it is very expensive. technology and very expensive research to move to the next phase. So at this point, we are looking to raise $25 million US to take it to the next level. With that said, of course, we can, with the technology, the goal is not only to be able to early identify and isolate bird flu, the H5N1, as well as other potential diseases or mutations of viruses and so on. But also, as I said, to expand it to other areas of detection and isolation of illnesses within our food supply. And then eventually down the road, we'll look at adapting it to the wildlife as well, because again, there is a cross-contamination there. Any type of disease or illness that hits the farming communities, ranchers, whether that's a hobby farm, whether that is a commercial farm, whether or not it is an equestrian ranch and so forth, it all intermixes. So we have to be very aware of that. But again, if you're interested in learning more about investment or contributing to that research, by all means, you can reach out to us. Reach out to me directly. ProPics, that's PROPICS Canada, CANADA, at gmail.com. Once again, ProPicsCanada at gmail.com if you would like more information on investment or sponsorship and other types of opportunities to get involved in the R&D for phase 2 of approaching and trying to attack the H5N1 and other avian illnesses, as well as other mammal-based illnesses in our food supply. So again, if you're interested in that, by all means, reach out to us, and we'll get you in touch with the right people for the information. Moving on from the bird flu, we can look at the fact that the show has pretty much run its course for tonight. We've covered all of the main stories. But if you have any comments or suggestions that you would like to have on the next episode of Live Chat with James, or any of our special episodes, by all means, feel free to either leave a comment in the comment section or email us at propicscanada@gmail.com. We always appreciate your comments, your thoughts on the stories we cover, as well as your suggestions. If you have any stories that you'd like us to investigate and look into, or just to cover on a general consensus, we are here as a part of the team. And as I say, as part of the team, I'm including you in that, because without the viewers, we wouldn't be here. So thanks for tuning in. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.